Professor William Liebenberg has often explained that global monetary shifts rarely begin with headlines, they begin with patterns. And today, one pattern stands out. Both Washington and the BRICS nations are telling the same story about de-dollarization. They publicly blame sanctions, but privately they're preparing for a deeper economic transition. Washington downplays structural weakness to defend confidence in the dollar, while BRICS avoids criticizing U.S. fundamentals to protect the value of the dollar reserves they still hold. This creates a shared narrative, sanctions risk, while both sides quietly move toward a new reality. When you follow the numbers instead of the speeches, the real driver becomes obvious. De-dollarization is no longer political, it's financial. For a decade, foreign central banks have stopped buying treasuries because U.S. debt has become permanent instead of cyclical. Between 2020 and 2022, U.S. debt surged from $23 trillion to $30 trillion, while the Federal Reserve's balance sheet nearly doubled. Negative real yields meant foreign reserve holders were losing purchasing power simply by holding dollars. Analyst Luke Groman called this a quiet expropriation, and it captures the truth. This shift is now an investment decision. Sanctions have become the perfect public explanation because they protect both sides from telling the uncomfortable truth. Washington uses sanctions to distract from the deeper issue. Treasuries no longer provide reliable real returns. That keeps the illusion of long-term dollar strength intact. BRICS nations also prefer the sanctions narrative because openly criticizing American financial fundamentals would instantly devalue their remaining U.S. assets. So both sides avoid talking about the real problems: dollar debasement, unsustainable fiscal deficits, and the shrinking appeal of dollar reserves. BRICS economies, especially China, are reducing their exposure to the dollar quietly while building new financial rails in the background. Their actions speak louder than their public statements. Record levels of central bank gold buying, the rise of non-dollar trade settlements, expanding local currency swap lines, and the development of new cross-border payment and settlement networks. They talk geopolitics in public, but their actions reveal a financial strategy designed to lower their dependence on the dollar without triggering a market shock. The article highlights a simple but unavoidable truth. The dollar system has reached a structural limit. The United States must now choose between high interest rates that could break the Treasury market or negative real rates that quietly devalue foreign reserves. Both paths erode global trust in the dollar. No central bank can accept long-term losses on reserve assets, and that is why de-dollarization will continue regardless of sanctions, politics, or diplomatic narratives. The shift is economic, and therefore inevitable. One of the clearest examples comes from a 2024 Carnegie Endowment report. It focused almost entirely on sanctions risk, while avoiding any mention of U.S. debt sustainability. BRICS messaging does the same. This convergence around a half-truth is deliberate. Both sides protect their own interests by avoiding the real discussion, the weakening financial structure beneath the dollar system. And whenever the world avoids a topic this aggressively, it usually means something much larger is taking shape behind the curtain. There is one reality both Washington and BRICS understand, even if neither side wants to say it openly. The dollar is becoming a less reliable reserve asset. U.S. debt continues rising at an unsustainable pace. Real yields are likely to stay suppressed for years, and treasuries expose foreign reserve holders to slow, hidden losses. That leaves every central bank on Earth facing the same conclusion: a new financial model must replace the old one. BRICS sees the writing on the wall and quietly prepares. Washington, meanwhile, continues believing in the strength of its own narrative while overlooking the structural decline beneath it. Even though the article never mentions XRP directly, it describes a gap in global financial infrastructure that lines up perfectly with what XRP was built to solve. BRICS cannot rely on another nation's currency for settlement because the renminbi is politically sensitive, gold is too slow for daily trade. Local currencies lack global liquidity, and the dollar is losing trust. That leaves a clear need for something neutral, fast, high liquidity, and interoperable, a settlement asset not controlled by any government, and that is exactly the role a bridge asset like XRP fulfills. The article repeatedly highlights the same concern. Foreign countries holding U.S. treasuries are absorbing slow losses as negative real rates erode purchasing power. A settlement asset must be immune to that risk. XRP fits that requirement naturally because it is not tied to U.S. fiscal policy, it cannot be inflated by political decisions, and it does not require holding the debt of any nation. For economies seeking a settlement tool rather than a reserve store of value, this separation becomes a major advantage. BRICS is openly developing non-dollar settlement channels, interoperability frameworks, currency swap lines, and entirely new cross-border payment rails. The article shows how these systems are meant to bypass the vulnerabilities of the dollar without replacing one political dependency with another. Yet the technology BRICS is trying to construct from scratch already exists. RippleNet and the XRP ledger provide instant atomic settlement, ISO 2022 compatibility, decentralized liquidity routing, and multi-currency bridging, exactly the characteristics the emerging system requires. Another point hides between the lines. The world wants settlement infrastructure that is faster than SWIFT, politically neutral, and not controlled by any single nation. XRP already checks these boxes. It offers real-time settlement, decentralized liquidity access, and regulatory clarity for institutions. This positions it as one of the only globally scalable alternatives that can sit outside both US and BRICS political influence, while connecting both. The deeper message of the article becomes clear once all the layers are put together. The dollar's foundation is weakening, treasuries are structurally unattractive, and both Washington and BRICS prefer to hide the economic cause behind a political narrative. Meanwhile, BRICS continues building systems that quietly reduce dependence on US monetary infrastructure. And in a global environment where neither side wants the other's currency at the center, a neutral, efficient, cross-border settlement asset becomes not just useful, it becomes necessary. XRP is currently the only institutionally integrated digital asset designed to fill that exact role. In a world that is reorganizing toward multipolar finance, it is the bridge that fits the gap. We inform, you decide. This channel does not offer hype, guaranteed outcomes, or sensational claims. Every insight we share is grounded in observable economic trends and publicly verifiable data. The purpose is simple: to understand where the global financial system is truly heading and why new settlement technologies will shape the next monetary era.